Hello everyone, and welcome back to my personal channel, where we always remember that the rules are made up and that the rich and powerful are to blame. Today, we are once again talking about Elon Musk. Elon Musk has been promising that full self-driving is right around the corner for years now, and at some point in the future, we may go over every single time he's made those claims. But today I really want to focus in on the more specific financial claims which were made when Elon Musk and Tesla announced the Robotaxi network in April 2019. For those who don't remember, the Robotaxi network was going to be a network of self-driving Teslas that would make you money while you sleep and that you would be able to hire through an app, like an Uber or a Lyft or anything like that. This was going to launch in 2020 and would fundamentally revolutionize auto ownership, rideshare, autonomy, everything. Before we really get into those financial claims, though, we're going to very quickly talk about Elon Musk's previous claims about full self-driving and how they led up to this robotaxi network. On January 6, 2016, Elon Musk tweeted, "In about 2 years, someone should work anywhere connected by land and not blocked by orders, e.g., you're in LA and the car is in New York." This would mean full self-driving would have been released half a decade ago at the beginning of 2018. A few months after that, on July 20th, 2016, Tesla released Master Plan Part 2, which explained the current plan for Tesla. There's a few interesting claims made, and let's review them. One was, as the technology matures, all Tesla vehicles will have the hardware necessary to be fully self-driving with fail operational capability, meaning that any given system in the car could break and your car will still drive itself safely. It is important to emphasize that refinement and validation of the software will take much longer than putting in place the cameras, radar, sonar, and computing hardware. In October, just a couple months later, Tesla would announce that they had reached the point that all vehicles now being sold had the requisite technology for full self-driving. In July of 2021, several years later, Tesla would announce that actually that was not true. Full self-driving would require hardware 3.0, whereas the vehicles released previously only had hardware 2.0. Reports now claim that Tesla is working on hardware 4.0, which will not be able to be retrofit into previous vehicles. Don't worry though, because Elon said,
Hardware 3 will not be as good as hardware 4, but I'm confident that hardware 3 will still far exceed the safety of the average human. So what we're aiming for is like, well, how do we get ultimately to, let's say for argument's sake, if hardware 3 can be, say, 200 or 300% safer than human, hardware 4 might be, 500 or 600%. There will be a hardware 5 beyond that. But what really matters is are we improving the average safety on the road?
So it doesn't matter that these cars with hardware 3 can't get hardware 4, because full self-driving will definitely be out in 2018 for all these cars with hardware 3. I mean 2020, I mean 2023, I mean 2025. It's coming, okay? Just wait, it's coming. The master plan continues. I should add a note here to explain why Tesla is deploying partial autonomy now rather than waiting until some point in the future. The most important reason is that when used correctly, it is already significantly safer than a person driving by themselves, and it would therefore be morally reprehensible to delay release simply for fear of bad press or some mercantile calculation of legal liability. It continues, according to the recently released 2015 NHTSA report, automotive fatalities increased by 8% to 1 death every 89 million miles. Autopilot miles will soon exceed twice that number, and the system gets better every day. It would make no more sense to disable Tesla's Autopilot, as some have called for, than it would to disable Autopilot in aircrafts, after which our system is named. I highlight this because Tesla highlights the NHTSA report, and I think it's important to point out that currently the NHTSA is currently doing an investigation into claims made about Tesla Autopilot because they're worried it was misrepresented, specifically that the safety of Tesla Autopilot was misrepresented. I also want to add, Tesla Autopilot has a habit of turning off in like the second or 2 seconds before a crash occurs. And then Tesla says Autopilot was not active when the crash occurs. This is corporate bullshit is what I think the technical term is, but that's how Tesla gets around a lot of the Autopilot fatalities and casualties. Later on in the master plan, it says, when true self-driving is approved by regulators, it will mean that you will be able to summon your Tesla from pretty much anywhere. Once it picks you up, you will be able to sleep, read, or do anything else en route to your destination. You will also be able to add your car to the Tesla shared fleet just by tapping a button on the Tesla phone app and have it generate income for you while you're at work or on vacation, significantly offsetting and at times potentially exceeding the monthly loan or lease cost. This dramatically lowers the true cost of ownership to the point where almost anyone could own a Tesla. Since most cars are only in use by their owner for 5% to 10% of the day, the fundamental economic utility of a true self-driving car is likely to be several times that of a car which is not. It continues, in cities where demand exceeds the supply of customer-owned cars, Tesla will operate its own fleet, ensuring you can always hail a ride from us no matter where you are. In several of those, you start to see the Robotaxi promise. Your car will be able to make money for you and that Tesla will operate its own fleet of self-driving cars. On October 19th, 2016, a few months after that new master plan was released, Elon Musk made the claim that by the end of 2017, a Tesla would be able to drive from LA to New York without human intervention, accelerating by a couple of months his earlier beginning of 2018 timeline. One day later, on October 20th, 2016, Tesla would post their infamous Paint It Black video entitled Tesla Self-Driving Demonstration that purported to demonstrate full self-driving on Teslas. It begins with the text, "The person in the driver's seat is only there for legal reasons. He is not doing anything. The car is driving itself." Well, as it turns out, this video was deceptive. Allegedly, unlike all the other Teslas, it had 3D maps built in to pre-program the route, including where to stop, and when they were preparing for this demonstration, the car crashed into a fence. This is based on the testimony of the former director of Autopilot, and that testimony includes that this was done at the direct request of Elon Musk. Elon has also specifically maintained that vision alone without these types of pre-built 3D maps would be sufficient for full self-driving, but in their demonstration video did not live up to that statement. This whole prologue was mostly to illustrate to you all that the claims made since the beginning of full self-driving have been regularly false, are being investigated by regulators, and really laid the groundwork for the most extraordinary set of claims, which happened in April 2019 at Autonomy Day when Elon Musk announced the Tesla Robotaxi network.
So any customer will be able to add or remove their car to the Tesla network. So we expect this to operate, it's sort of like a combination of maybe the Uber and Airbnb model. So if you own the car, you can add or subtract it to the Tesla network, and Tesla would take 25 or 30% of the revenue. And then in places where there aren't enough people sharing their cars, we would just have dedicated Tesla vehicles. So when you use the car, we'll show you our ride-sharing app. So you'll be able to summon the car from the parking lot, get in, and go for a drive.
Which they were confident would launch in 2020.
I feel very confident predicting autonomous robotaxis for Tesla next year.
And that by 2022, Tesla would be selling cars without pedals or steering wheels.
And at some point, you won't need steering wheels or pedals, and we'll just delete those. So as these things become less and less important, we'll just delete parts. They won't be there. If you say like probably 2 years from now, we make a car that has no steering wheels or pedals. And if we need to accelerate that time, we can always just delete parts, easy.
For any Elon fans who accidentally wandered in here, it's currently 2023, and we do not have robotaxis or Teslas being sold without pedals or steering wheels. Well, I guess some of them don't have steering wheels and instead have really challenging and problematic yokes, but I don't think that's what was meant here. Elon specifically said that Tesla will have over 1 million robotaxis on the road next year, meaning 2020.
By the middle of next year, we'll have over 1 million Tesla cars on the road with full self-driving hardware, feature complete, at a reliability level that we would consider that no one needs to pay attention. Meaning you could go to sleep from our standpoint, if you fast forward a year, just a little, maybe a year and 3 months, but next year for sure, we will have over 1 million robotaxis on the road.
And also promised that these would be robotaxis with no one in them. No safety driver, nothing, full self-driving. During this period, Elon also made a variety of other absurd statements, including, if you buy a car that does not have the hardware for full self-driving, it's like buying a horse.
Really fundamental message that consumers should be taking today is that it's financially insane to buy anything other than a Tesla. It'll be like owning a horse in 3 years. I mean, fine if you want to own a horse, but you should go into it with that expectation. If you buy a car that does not have the hardware necessary for full self-driving, it is like buying a horse.
This comment about horses aged particularly bad, considering it's been reported that Elon used horses to attempt to buy off survivors of his sexual harassment. Let's focus in on the financial claims, though, that were made during the course of Tesla Autonomy Day in 2019, because wow, they are a doozy. Consider this slide, one I think is very important because on it, Elon and Tesla say, and remember, this is in 2019, the current price for a Model 3 robotaxi is $38,000.
So the current cost of a Model 3 robotaxi is less than $38,000. We expect that number to improve over time.
I want to make sure we all hear clearly that he said current price for a robotaxi, which is incredible because 4 years after this, not a single person has been able to buy a robotaxi for that price. How is it current then, and yet no one's been able to do it? I don't understand how that works linguistically, you know? These slides also start by establishing a longevity value for the car, an efficiency value, namely that the car should last for 1 million miles and the motor should get 4.5 miles per kilowatt hour.
And we're designing the cars. The cars currently being built are all designed for 1 million miles of operation. So the drive units are designed and tested and validated for 1 million miles of operation.
And Elon does try to cover himself a little bit here by saying that their current battery pack is only good for about 350,000 miles, but the one going into production next year, which was 2020, remember, would have a 1 million mile longevity.
The current battery pack is about maybe 300 to 500,000 miles. The new battery pack that probably go into production next year is designed explicitly for 1 million miles of operation. The entire vehicle, battery pack inclusive, is designed to operate for 1 million miles with minimal maintenance.
Elon also let us know that within 3 years, which would be 2022, the price to purchase a robotaxi-capable car would have fallen to $25,000.
Yeah, probably, say long-term, 3 years, robotaxis with eliminated parts, maybe it ends up being $25,000 or less.
Currently in 2023, the cheapest vehicle Tesla has in inventory are Model 3s that run about $39,000, not including the full self-driving package. This is 156% of the $25,000 that Elon promised. Perhaps even more striking, though, than the promises about the cost of entry, though, were the promises about how filthy rich that the robotaxi network would make you. Elon made the claim in 2019 that the current cost to run a robotaxi was under 18 cents per mile.
The cost to run a robotaxi, we think, less than 18 cents a mile, and dropping. Like this would be current. This is current cost. Future costs will be lower,
including all overhead. Again, it's incredible to me that they were able to calculate a current cost when there were none currently operating, but I lack Elon's vision and have a vastly different hold on reality than he does. We also start to get other numbers from Elon, including that they assume the robotaxi is empty for half of its miles, and they expect that it'll be able to make 65 cents of profit per occupied mile, do about 90,000 miles per year, and make $30,000 in profit per year.
If you say, what would be the probable gross profit from a single robotaxi? We think probably something on the order of $30,000 per year.
Lasting for 11 years. This is especially incredible because it means by now you should be able to buy a $25,000 robotaxi and pay it off using the proceeds of running a robotaxi for a single year. Then you have 10 years of nice and easy profit, making your $25,000 investment net you about $300,000 over its lifetime.
So in nominal dollars, that would be, a little over $300,000 over the course of 11 years. It might be higher. I think these consumptions are actually relatively conservative.
But this led me to wonder, what would happen if instead of just sitting on those profits, you reinvested them into running more robotaxis?
But similar to Airbnb, though, in that I have this home, my car, and now I can just rent them out. So I can make an extra income from owning multiple cars and just renting them out. Like I have a Model 3. I aspire to get this Roadster here next when you build it, and I'm going to just rent my Model 3 out. Why would I give it back to you, you know?
I guess you could operate a rental car fleet, but I think this is very unwieldy. Yeah.
I don't know. Seems easy.
Okay. Try it.
Some of you may not know this, but in a past life, I was a data scientist. Now I'm a writer and a podcaster, and I make videos on YouTube, and so don't deal with numbers or coding that much anymore. But I thought it would be fun to do just a little bit of math to try to figure out just how rich the Robotaxi network could make you. The code for this is linked in the description. I'm not a great coder, but this should be functional and will let you play with some of my assumptions. Let's start with a more realistic scenario, where we assume that the cost per Tesla is $39,000. For our simulation, we will need to set a few assumptions to make this work. We start by assuming that for the first Robotaxi, you had to finance the entire thing, and so your starting cash is negative $39,000. We set the price for each new Robotaxi you obtain at that same $39,000, and then we borrow many of Tesla's assumptions. Each Robotaxi will operate for 1 million miles before being taken out of service, doing 7,500 miles per month. It makes 65 cents a profit per occupied mile, and half the miles will be occupied. We assume that you're getting the payouts for the Robotaxi network monthly, though if they're more often, you actually end up making slightly more because you're able to accelerate the compounding. We further assume that whenever we have enough cash on hand to purchase a new Robotaxi, we do, and it gets deployed the very next month. We run this simulation for a total of 20 years, which will be long enough that we actually see some of the cars fall out of service and no longer be usable. So how profitable do these 2 decades end up being for you? Well, it starts out pretty slow because you need to pay back the initial debt. At the end of the first year, 12 months in, you still have almost $10,000 in debt. You are still operating your single Robotaxi, and you have made about $29,000 so far. By the end of the second year, you are no longer in debt, you have $19,500 cash on hand, and you still are just operating your single Robotaxi. In month 32, you're finally able to buy your second Robotaxi, and this is where things start to accelerate. At the end of year 3, you're operating 2 Robotaxis and have earned a total of $97,500. Over the next few years, things really accelerate. At the end of year 4, you've now doubled the size of your fleet to 4 taxis, and you have made a total of $180,000. Year 5, you have more than doubled your fleet again, 9 total Robotaxis, total of $353,000. Year 6, you have doubled your fleet again, 18 total Robotaxis, and now have $714,000. Year 7, 37 total Robotaxis. You're buying more than 1 new car per month, and you have now made over $1 million, with your total being $1.4 million. Year 8, your fleet is now 76 Robotaxis. You've earned a total of $3 million. Year 9, 158 Robotaxis, and you've earned a total of $6 million. Year 10, the fleet is 327 Robotaxis. You've earned a total of $12.7 million, and every single one of the cars you have purchased is still in service because they are good, according to Elon Musk, for 1 million miles. Year 11 is where we finally see your original Robotaxi end its loyal service. Your fleet is 678 Robotaxis, and you have made over $26 million. Year 12, your fleet is 1,401 Robotaxis, and you have earned a total of $54.7 million. Year 13, 2,900 Robotaxis. You're buying well over 100 Teslas each month, and you have earned a total of $113 million. Year 14, your fleet is now over 6,000 Teslas, and you have made $234 million. Year 15, your fleet is now over 12,000 Teslas, and you have made a total of $484 million. Year 16, your fleet is now over 25,000 Teslas. You are purchasing more than 1,000 Teslas each month, and you have made a total of over $1 billion. Year 17, your fleet is now over 53,000 cars, and you have made a total of over $2 billion. Year 18, your fleet is now 110,000 cars, and you have made a total of $4.2 billion. Year 19, your fleet is still 227,000 cars, and you have made a total of $8.8 billion. Year 20, where we end this simulation, you have a total active fleet of 471,000 cars. Over the last year, you have purchased 250,000 Teslas, currently about half of their total annual production quantity, and you have earned a total of $18 billion, nearly half of what Elon Musk wasted on Twitter, all from purchasing a single robotaxi and reinvesting the profits. This is fucking absurd. It implies an annual interest rate compounded monthly of over 60%. Bernie Madoff's Ponzi promised 10%. Anchor in the Terra Ponzi scheme promised 18%. I honestly am shocked that federal agents did not immediately walk out on stage with handcuffs to take Musk's in. Like, this is unworkable. And Elon described these numbers as conservative.
I think these consumptions are actually relatively conservative.
And I'm actually being extra conservative because I didn't use the price that Elon specified. If we go down to $25,000 each like Elon said they should cost, then things get even crazier. If we change our assumptions to that Teslas cost $25,000 each like Elon said they would, then your fleet hits the same point that the 39K case did in 13 years. And if we keep going all the way to the 20-year point, you end up with 1.1 billion Teslas. You have one Tesla for every 8 people on Earth. While writing this script at the end of May, I checked Clean Technica, and they said there have been a total of about 4 million Teslas delivered. But you personally have 1.1 billion. Based on this model, after 20 years, you would have approximately 250 times more Teslas than have ever been sold as of today. Oh, and you also would have made a total of $27.6 trillion, or approximately the entire US GDP for a year. This one has an implied annual interest rate of over 100%. It is so absurd. And the really frustrating part for me is that we are being conservative. We are assuming you are only able to get a loan for a single car, but that isn't necessarily true. There's plenty of people who could very conceivably be able to get a loan to buy multiple cars. So let's run that model quick. Let's imagine you could get a small $1 million loan from your dad to start your business.
My father gave me a small loan of $1 million.
Well, then for the $25,000 case, you end up with a total of 75 billion Teslas in your fleet, about 10 for every person on Earth, and you will have earned a total of $1.8 quadrillion, which is a lot of money. Even for my more conservative $39,000 case, you still end up with 19 million Teslas, which is, again, 5 times the total number of Teslas ever sold, and you will have earned $754 billion. Not bad for a nice small loan. But there's a way to make it even clearer how absurd these numbers are, though. Recently, Elon Musk bought Twitter in a deal worth about $44 billion. What if instead of a social network that he is currently destroying, he instead spent just 1% of that amount investing into the robotaxi network? Well, in the conservative $39,000 case, and assuming you have to pay back all those cars you start off with, you end up with a mere 8.9 billion Teslas, one for everyone on Earth with a few extra, and earn a paltry $346 trillion. In the Muskian $25,000 case, then you end up with a much more impressive 33 trillion Teslas, 4,000 per person on Earth. You will have earned $844 quadrillion, which means you now own the Earth, and the Moon, and the Sun, and Elon Musk. Congratulations, you won the game. Clearly, these numbers are stupid, so why am I belaboring them? Because it takes very little effort to see how stupid these are, which means Tesla and Elon knew how stupid they were when they said them at Autonomy Day. Furthermore, I included the Twitter example because it emphasizes one thing. If the numbers were real and robotaxis were real, then Tesla would not sell Teslas. They would use every single Tesla they can create as part of this absurdly profitable network. The fact that Tesla continued to sell Teslas when they claimed they were mere months away from launching the robotaxi network was proof that the robotaxi network was not really coming. What is really crazy to me is that when I changed nearly all the assumptions in this model to try to make it more reasonable, the numbers we get are still unreasonable. Let's go back to our assumptions and talk about how we can tweak these to make this make a little bit more sense. Let's assume instead of 1 million miles, which no matter how much Elon pretends is realistic,
and we expect that we're literally designing, we're designing the cars the same way that commercial semi-trucks are designed. Commercial semi-trucks are all designed for a 1 million mile life, and we're designing the cars for a 1 million mile life as well.
is just not. Let's say instead that each Tesla lasts for 350,000 miles. This is far closer to the actual possible lifespan for their batteries. Now let's be clear, this is a huge change to the numbers Musk gave. We're suggesting each car will actually get 65% less lifespan than Elon thought was conservative. Less than half. What else looks wrong in the mile? Well, let's assume the profit per mile starts where they say. It's not going to be static. As more and more robotaxis are deployed, we're going to assume that the profit per mile decreases to represent the market getting more competitive. To model this, I added two numbers into the model. One is a coefficient that the profit per mile is multiplied by each year. So if the profit starts at 65 cents per mile and the coefficient is 0.95, each year it would be multiplied by 0.95 to reduce the profit per mile. This still didn't seem exactly right to me because honestly, I think we would expect the proportional amount the profit decreases to decrease slightly per year. So I added another value, which that coefficient is raised to. So if the coefficient is 0.95, we can raise it to this other value, which is currently also set to 0.95, and exponentially decay the decaying profit per mile. If you don't understand what I'm saying, then playing around with the code might help, or just know that I've made it so that every year profits go down. You can't make as much as you did the year before. Furthermore, there's inflation in our world. Teslas have not kept getting less expensive as Elon thought, so we're going to add in an inflation coefficient, in this case 0.03. Each year we model that the cost of a Tesla will increase by 3%. We're getting closer to a final model now, but I did want to add a little bit of modeling surrounding how cost increases your business scales. So I made it so every order of magnitude your fleet increases, 10, 100, 1,000, etc., the price per Tesla increases by 3% to help simulate staffing and other complexities that come as it scales. So I basically gutted the numbers Elon described as conservative, and you want to know the truth? The results are still fucking ridiculous. If you start with a $39,000 Tesla case, you still end up with a fleet of 31 Teslas, which doesn't sound like very much after what we've seen, but still 30 more than what you started with, and you earn a total of $6 million. In the $25,000 case, you end up with 7,700 Teslas and earn a total of $569 million. These numbers are far smaller, I know, but remember, we cut the longevity by 65%. More than half. We cut the profit every single year, raise the price for cars every single year, and this is despite Elon saying his numbers were conservative. The $39,000 case I just gave still has an annual implied interest rate of 25% per year, more than Anchor in the Terra Ponzi and more than double what Madoff promised in his Ponzi scheme. The $25,000 case has an implied interest rate of 50%, which is more than double what Anchor paid in the Terra Ponzi and about 5 times what Madoff paid in his Ponzi. Even when you gut Elon's supposedly conservative numbers, they still end up absurd. And these become even more absurd when we consider the loan case and the Twitter case we discussed before. Very quickly, since we've already been in this section of the video for too long, with $1 million loan, the $39,000 case results in you having 970 Teslas and a total earned of $227 million with an implied rate of return of 27%. The $25,000 case, 281,000 Teslas, total earned of $23 billion with an implied rate of return of 51%. With 1% of the purchase price of Twitter in the $39,000 case, 209,000 Teslas, total earned of $61 billion with an implied rate of return of 24% per year. In the $25,000 case, 49.5 million Teslas in your fleet. Remember, they've currently only sold 4 million. Total earn of $4.7 trillion. Implied rate of return, 47% per year. These numbers are so dumb. These numbers are bad. In my day job doing cryptocurrency criticism, I would be desperately warning about how these rates are not possible and are not sustainable. But the richest man in the world had no fear saying these on stage. He had no problem promising things they absolutely could not deliver. Why, though? Autonomy Day, which we've been talking about, happened in April 2019. Just over a week later, Tesla raised over $2 billion between sales of common stock and convertible notes. Leading up to this raise, Tesla needed to show they had opportunities for high-margin products which would justify their massive valuation, and it just so happens that they presented a model with absolutely broken margins. Listen, I'm not saying Elon Musk committed securities fraud by making these promises before raising this money, especially since as early as 2012, Elon said that Tesla would never need to raise money again. What I am saying is that I think Elon Musk should be investigated for securities fraud related to these promises that he made shortly before Tesla did this fundraise. Elon Musk sold Teslas as an investment.
You say what is net present value of a robotaxi? Probably on the order of a couple $100,000.
Making financial promises more extravagant than most Ponzi schemes, and claimed they were conservative. Years later, full self-driving is nowhere to be seen. The cost of an entry-level Tesla has gone up instead of down. There are 0 robotaxis on the road, but the idea is forgotten, discarded, and that in itself proves what they were promising was not possible. Because if Elon could make as much as his model suggested, he would be doing it. Now, I want to emphasize that the problems with Elon go far beyond his inability to accurately assess full self-driving. He has promoted conspiracy theories, recommended people vote for insurrectionists, showed a deep lack of understanding about cryptocurrency, destroyed one of my favorite websites, and has been credibly accused by multiple people of sexual harassment. And Tesla has had repeated accusations of maintaining a racist workplace. Elon is a bad person, but he also blatantly lied about the financial returns from owning a Tesla, and so far has experienced no consequences for those blatant lies. Thank you for tuning in, and if you enjoyed this video, then make sure to check out one of my other videos that feature Elon Musk, either the one about his dad's emerald mine or the one about his Twitter purchase. Both are good. Thank you.